السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشانه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد. إخواني في الله, we are continuing with our lecture series looking at the third state of the people on the Day of Judgment. We looked at the state of the disbelievers, then we looked at the state of the sinful Muslims, and number 3 we looked at the righteous Muslims. Number 1, we said the righteous Muslims on the Day of Judgment, إخواني في الله, لا يحزنهم الفزع الأكبر. They will not be given a terror on that day that is terrifying. Number 2, we said they shall be given a shade on the day that there is no shade except the shade of Allah Azza wa Jal. And we mentioned the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam mentions سبعة يظلهم الله في ظل يوم لا ظل إلا ظله. Then number 3, yesterday we mentioned that whoever removes a difficulty from a Muslim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove from them the difficulty on the Day of Judgment. من نفس عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. Number 4, we mentioned that there was a man from the previous nation who used to give out money, debt. وكان يقول للفتاة, he used to say to his young servant, إذا أتيت معسرا تجاوز عنه لعل الله يتجاوز عنا. When you come to a person who is in a state of difficulty, overlook it, forgive that debt, perhaps Allah will forgive us. Number 5, we said the people who are just on the Day of Judgment, إن المقسطين عند الله يوم القيامة, they shall be given manabir al-nur, they shall be given thrones of light on the Day of Judgment. عن يمين الرحمن, on the right side of Allah Azza wa Jal. Number 6, Ikhwani Fillah, the category we look at tonight is one of the best of the Muslims, and these are the shuhada and the murabitun, the ones who are martyrs and the ones who die protecting the borders of the Muslims. What is the state of the shuhada and the murabitun on the Day of Judgment? The Prophet ﷺ, as mentioned by Imam al-Tirmidhi in his Sunan and Ibn Majah in his Sunan, from the hadith of al-Miqdam ibn Ma'di Karib, قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says, للشهيد عند الله ست خصال. He says the one who dies for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, the martyr, he has 6 virtues. He'll be given 6 things. The one who dies في سبيل الله shall be given 6 virtues. He says, يغفر الله في أول الدفعة ويرى مقعده من الجنة. He will be forgiven when his blood is spilt. وَيَرَى مَقْعَدَهُ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ, and he shall see his place in Jannah. So the first thing the shaheed happens, he's forgiven all his sins. The time his blood is spilt by a knife or a bullet or a bomb, whatever it is that kills him, he's forgiven all his sins and he sees his place in Jannah. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَيُجَارُ مِنْ عَذَابِ الْقَبْرِ. He will not be punished in the grave. He will not be asked a question in the grave, Man Rabbuka, Man Nabiyuka, Ma Dinuk, or be punished in the grave. The shaheed is absolved. He is excused from that. So number 2, no adhab al-qabr. Number 3, وَيُؤْمَنْ مِنَ الْفَزَعِ الْأَكْبَرِ. He will not be shaken or terrified on the day of people are terrified, the Day of Judgment. And number 4, يُوضَعْ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ تَاجَ الْوِقَارِ الْيَقُوتَ مِنْهُ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. He'll be given on the Day of Judgment, إخواني في الله, a crown of dignity. 1 ruby from this crown is better than this world and everything in it. Then the Prophet ﷺ, he says, and this is the one the men like, وَيُزَوِّجُ إِثْنَتَيْنِ وَسَبْعِينَ زَوْجَةً مِنَ الْحُورِ الْعِينِ, and he's given 72 wives from the Hur al-Ain. You ready? And finally, وَيَشْفَعْ فِي سَبْعِينَ مِنْ أَقْرِبَائِهِ, and he intercedes for 70 of his family. So this is a shaheed on the Day of Judgment. From amongst the things mentioned there, he'll be given a crown on the Day of Judgment. Number 2, he'll be married to 72 wives. Number 3, he'll be not terrified on that day. And number 4, he'll be, what is the last thing I mentioned? He will intercede for 70 members of his family. This is the shaheed fi sabilillah, the one who dies for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. He has given his soul and his wealth for Allah's sake. In a different hadith, Ikhwani Fillah, the Prophet ﷺ mentions the one who guards the borders of the Muslims. You Muslims, you're sleeping in your village. You, your wives, your sisters, your mothers. Enemies can attack you anytime. But there's some Muslims who are guarding the borders of the Muslims to prevent the enemies to come harm you or to harm your family. What is the reward for such a person who protects the borders of the Muslims? The Prophet ﷺ, he says, as narrated by Imam al-Tabarani rahimahullah from the hadith of Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, قال عليه الصلاة والسلام رباط يوم خير من صيام الدهر. Protecting the border of the Muslims for one day is better than fasting consecutively for 1 year. Protecting the borders of the Muslims for one day is better than fasting for 354 days. Are you together? Then he continues, alayhi salatu salam, says, Man mata murabitan fi sabilillah. Whoever dies in the state of ribat, yu'man min al-faza' al-akbar, he will be protected from the great terror of the day of judgment. He will get the smell of Jannah and the blessings of Jannah when he is in his graves. وَيَجْرِ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرُهُ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. And his deeds will continue to be multiplied until the day of judgment. This is the ajr that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for the one who guards the borders of the Muslims. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says in another authentic hadith, as narrated by Imam Bukhari from the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِ بِيَدِهِ. By Allah who owns my soul, لا يُكْلَمُ أَحَدٌ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ بِمَنْ يُكْلَمْ فِي سَبِيلِهِ. No one will be injured for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah knows the ones who are injured for His sake. إِلَّا جَاءَ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Except they will come on the day of judgment. وَاللَّوْنُ لَوْنُ الدَّمِ وَرِيحْ رِيحْ الْمِسْكِ. And his blood will be the color of blood, yes. But the smell of that blood will be the smell of misk. Ikhwani fillah, these are the shuhada. These are the murabitun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you your wealth. True or false? He's given you your life. But He's making a business proposition. Who wants to deal with Allah Azza wa Jal? He says, I am ready to purchase your wealth and your soul. And for you a reward is Jannah. إن الله اشترى من المؤمنين أنفسهم وأموالهم بأنه لهم جنة يقاتلون في سبيل الله فيقتلون ويقتلون وعدا عليه حقا في التوراة والإنجيل والقرآن ومن أوفى بعهده من الله فاستبشروا ببيعكم الذي بايعتم به وذلك هو الفوز العظيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you this trade. If you want Jannah, be ready to sacrifice your wealth for His sake. Be ready to sacrifice even your soul for His sake. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you this excellent business deal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ فَرِحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ أَلَّا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِنِعْمَةٍ مِنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not consider any Muslim who has died for his sake that he is dead. But he is alive in Jannah. So the person who dies fi sabilillah is not considered dead, ikhwani fillah. Abdullah ibn Mubarak radiallahu anhu, one of the scholars, he used to have a friend from the worshippers, Fudayl ibn Iyad rahimahullah. Fudayl was a great worshipper, worshipping in Mecca. He became the greatest worshipper of his time and most of history. He writes some lines of poetry for him. He says, يا عبد الحرمين لو أبصرتنا لعلمت أنك في العبادة تلعب من كان يخطب خده بدموعه فنحورنا بدمائنا تتقطب. He says, O worshipper of the harams, يا عبد الحرمين, if you saw us, you will consider yourself playing with your worship. Your tears are covering your cheeks, but us, our blood and the dust, fi sabilillah, is covering our cheeks. Ikhwani fillah, such is the state of the shaheed, the martyr, that the Prophet ﷺ says, وَدِدْتُ أَنْ أَبْصُوَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَأُقْتَلْ ثُمَّ أُحْيَا ثُمَّ أُقْتَلْ ثُمَّ أُحْيَا ثُمَّ أُقْتَلْ. The Prophet ﷺ has been promised the highest level of Jannah. But he says, I wish to fight fi sabilillah, then I am killed, then I am given life, then I am killed, then I am given life, then I am killed. Such is the status of the shaheed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that chooses the shaheed. You cannot declare anyone to be a shaheed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who chooses the martyr, and He knows who the martyrs are. Ikhwani fillah, if you look at our history, the Sahaba, you have people like Hamza, the uncle of Prophet alayhi salatu shaheed. Ali ibn Abi Talib, shaheed. Al-Hussein, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, Musa ibn Umair, Amr ibn Jamuh, Abdullah ibn Haram. You have one of them is called Haram bin Milhan. He is stabbed by a spear behind. He takes his blood, he covers his face with his blood and says, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba, I am successful by the Lord of the Kaaba. You have someone called Amr ibn Jamuh. He is lame, he can't walk. But he goes to beg the Prophet ﷺ, let me participate in the battle of Uhud. And he participates in the battle of Uhud, and he dies as a shaheed. The Prophet ﷺ says, Wallahi ka'anni anzuru ilayhi fil Jannah. Wallahi, it is as if I can see him in Jannah. And his leg that was lame is okay and is walking in Jannah. Such is the status of the shaheed, that he goes straight to Jannah. Ikhwani fillah. We mentioned previously, Ikhwani fillah, the story of Abdullah ibn Haram, Anas ibn Nadr, Julaybib, Haram bin Milhan, Musa ibn Umair. We mentioned all these stories. The other stories also mentioned by the scholars of Fillah. Amongst them, Hisham ibn Yahya al-Kinani rahimahullah says, غزونا أرض الروم في السنة 38. We attacked the Romans in the year 38 of the Hijri calendar. بقيادة مسلم ibn Abd al-Malik. And our general at the time was Maslam ibn Abd al-Malik. وكان في الجيش معنا رجل يقال له سعيد بن حرث. In our army was a man called Sa'id ibn Harth, ذو حظ وعبادة. This man was excellent when it came to worship of Allah Azza wa Jal. كان يصوم النهار ويقوم الليل. He used to fast every day and pray the قيام الليل for most of the night. وكنا نحرص أن نخفف عنه نوبته في الحراسة. And we used to take great care to reduce his duties when it comes to guarding the Muslims. وكان يأبى, and he used to refuse that. وكان لا يفتر عن ذكر الله عز وجل وقراءة القرآن, and never used to stop making adhkar and reciting the Quran of Allah Azza wa Jal. This man called Sa'id ibn Harth, the year 38 of the Hijri calendar, as mentioned by the scholars. So Hisham ibn Yahya al-Kinani says, one day me and Sa'id were given the duty of guarding the Muslim campsite, and we were besieging a fortress from the fortress of the Romans. So the Muslims are sleeping and us were guarding them. Sa'id rahimahullah, he starts praying Qiyamul Layl, and he performs long Qiyamul Layl, standing one rak'ah for hours and hours. And I said to myself, Hisham, he says, I looked down upon myself. How does this man have this strength to do all this ibadah? I am not able to do the same. We're the same in age, we're the same in status, but this man does all this ibadah. I cannot be like him. And I remembered ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ, that this is a fadl, a blessing that Allah, a favor from Allah, that He gives whomsoever He wishes. So Sa'id ibn Harth has performed Qiyamul Layl for the entire night. We pray Salatul Fajr. And I tell him, oh my brother, may Allah have mercy upon you. إِنَّا لِلْعَيْنِ حَقٍّ وَلِلْنَفْسِ حَقٍّ. Your eyes have a right upon you. Your soul has a right upon you. Please rest for a while. I'll finish whatever is required. He said he refused. He says, Ya akhi, إِنَّمَا هِيَ أَنفَاسٌ تُعَدْ. These are my breath I'm counting. وَأُبَادِرْ خُرُوجَ نَفْسِي. And I am rushing before my soul is removed. I act as required of me. This is my life. It's going to end anytime. I'm in a competition between myself and Malakul Maut. I have to work every single minute I've been given. I plead with him. I tell him, Ya akhi, we are going to face the enemy of Islam. It is best for you that if you meet the enemy or you're in a state of strength, you are active, you are ready for them. Please rest, even if it's 30 minutes, 1 hour. I will do everything for you. So Sa'id goes to the camp and he starts sleeping. The Muslims go to fight. A short while later, as I'm preparing food, I hear a sound, a voice coming out of the tent. I wonder, why is there a sound coming from the tent? Has someone come from behind and entered the tent? I only know Sa'id is there, but Sa'id is sleeping. But I can hear someone talking in the tent. So I rush to the tent, I look around, I do not see anyone apart from Sa'id ibn Harth. And he's talking in his dreams. And he's laughing in his dream. I go put my ear next to him. And he says, ما أحب أن أرجع. ما أحب أن أرجع. I do not want to go back. I do not want to go back. Then he takes his hand and he stretches it out. Then he returns it softly. Then he wakes up. When he wakes up, Ikhwani fillah, he starts trembling and shaking, looking left and right, confused completely. Hisham, he says, I held him very tight, I hugged him. Cool down, my brother, relax, everything is okay, everything is okay. When his understanding came back, I asked him, oh my brother, what is this I saw from you? Please tell me. He says, what did you see? I saw you laughing, I saw you talking in the dream, things I do not understand. Please tell me. He says, Ya Aba Walid, oh Aba Walid, forgive me, let me not tell you this, let this be my secret. He says, I am your brother. Perhaps you might say something that shall benefit me in my dunya and akhirah. Please tell me what you saw. He says, I slept and I saw two men in my dream. The best, most handsome, most beautiful of men I've ever seen in my life. And they say to me, Ya Sa'id, oh Sa'id, Abshir, oh Sa'id, glad tidings, your good deeds have been accepted. واستجيب دعوتك وقبل عملك وعجلت لك البشرى في حياتك الدنيا. Your deeds have been accepted. Your dua has been answered by Allah Azza wa Jal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you glad tidings in dunya for you to see what you have been prepared for. انطلق معنا. Let us go with you. We show you what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared for you. Says, we start walking in Jannah with these two men. I do not know them. Very handsome, very pleasant, excellent people. And I see from the rivers of Jannah, I see from the trees of Jannah, the roads of Jannah, I see the beauty of Jannah. Until I came to one of the castles or the palaces of Jannah. And I entered it. And I see a woman on a sofa, on a couch. And she says to me, Ya Sa'id, لقد طالت انتظارنا إليك. We have been waiting for you for a very long time. فقلت لها أين أنا? I said to her, where am I? قالت في جنة المأوى. You are in the Jannah, in the paradise, the eternal or the eternal residence. فقلت لها ومن أنت? And who are you? فقالت أنا زوجتك الخالدة. I am your wife for all of eternity. فمددت يدي. I stretched my hands to touch her, and she pushed it back kindly. She said, La, not yet. You're still amongst the people of dunya. But after 3 nights, you shall be with us. فقلت لها الليلة ليلة. I want you to be tonight. I want it to be tonight. She said, ذلك كان أمر الله. That is the amr of Allah Azza wa Jal. وكان مقضية. It has already been judged upon. Inshallah, after 3 nights, تفطر عندنا. You shall take your iftar with us. So after he saw the dream, and he told the brother, he says, Ustur ma huyit. Keep this a secret, O Hisham. Do not tell anyone about this. And I kept his secret. So he goes to the bathroom, he takes a shower, he puts on his kafan, the shroud that people are buried in, and he puts on the hanut, the perfume that the people are kept on when they die. And he goes to the battlefield, Ikhwani fillah. And he fights so bravely. When the Muslims come back, they say to Hisham, Ya Hisham, oh Abu Walid, Wallahi, we have never seen such bravery in our life. This brother was going every place where death was certain. Arrows were flying left, right, and center to him. Stones, rocks, everything was being thrown to him. But nothing was hitting him. Wallahi, I've never seen such bravery, such heroism, such chivalry in our entire life. What man is this? So Sa'id comes back to the camp, and he breaks his fast. He was fasting the day, and he performs the Qiyamul Layl as usual. The next day, the same thing, day 2 has passed. And he comes back, and the people are wondering, we have seen even more amazing than yesterday. Such bravery. He was throwing himself to the army, to the enemy, not fearing anything for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Then day 3 came. Hisham says, I went to observe him in the battlefield. So I come to the battlefield, and I look upon him, and he is fighting bravely from the time of morning. The whole day, arrows left, right, and center, nothing is reaching him. Then before the time of Maghrib, one of the people of the castle targeted him specifically and shot an arrow that went through his neck and he fell down. I rushed to him, "Oh Muslims, come assist me to carry this man. Come assist me." We take him separately just around that area. And I say to him, "Ya Sa'id, هنيئا لك بما تفطر الليلة. هنيئا لك بما تفطر الليلة. Congratulations upon to you what you're going to have your iftar today. Your iftar is going to be in Jannah. هنيئا لك بما تفطر الليلة." And he said to me, he had no way to talk. So he said like this, "I hide my secret as long as I'm alive." And Sa'id, he said, "Alhamdulillah alladhi sadaqana wa'dah." All praise is due to Allah Azza wa Jal that has kept his promise, and he breathed his last and he's died. Hisham, he started saying, "Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, halummu ilayya ayyuhal akhwan." "Oh my brothers, come closer, I tell you." And he tells the Muslims about the dream that they saw. And every Muslim in the campsite started crying. Tears started flowing on them. And they spent the entire night in Qiyamul Layl and Ibadah. The general of the Muslims, Maslama ibn Abdul Malik, he says, "You are his companion. You pray for him the Salatul Janazah. You pray for him the Salatul Janazah." I don't know why they did Salatul Janazah, because the Shaheed does not need Salatul Janazah. According to that, you can do for them Salatul Janazah, but it's not needed. So they did for him Salatul Janazah. And the morning, the Muslims had so much iman, so much vigor, that they attacked the enemies of Islam. And by the time of Duha, by 10 a.m., they had conquered the palace or the fortress of the Roman Empire, of the Byzantines. These are the events as mentioned by the Muslim history in the year 38 of the Hijri calendar. Such is the status of the Shaheed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has raised their level very high in Jannah. They are in the highest levels of Jannah. And our final example, Ikhwani Fillah, is that time for a final example? Also mentioned by the scholars, one day the Romans attacked the land of the Muslims. So one of the generals is called Abdul Wahid ibn Zayd al-Ansari, rahimahullah. He stands in the mosque and he reminds the Muslims, "Oh Muslims, Allah has prepared for you Jannah. Jannah is like this, it looks like this, and your wife in Jannah is this beautiful. Her cloth is better than the dunya and everything within her, everything within it. Her legs you can see transparent." He describes the women of Jannah so much that a lady in the mosque, she's called Ibrahim al-Hashimiyya from Banu Hashim. She stands up, she says, "Oh Abdul Wahid, please repeat what you've said. Please repeat what you have said." The Muslims are in tears. So Abdul Wahid repeats the attribute. And he says, "Oh Abdul Wahid, you know my son Ibrahim. Ibrahim, every family in Basra wants my son to marry their girl. He is one of the most worthy bachelors in the whole city of Basra. Everyone wants to marry by Ibrahim. Wallah, I refused every businessman, every rich person, I have refused. But I want my son to be married to this woman that you mentioned in Jannah. And I am ready to give 10,000 dinar, 10,000 gold coins to be the dowry for this wedding to happen. Take this 10,000 dinar. Oh Ibrahim, where are you? Ibrahim, stand up. Ya Ummah, na'am labbaik. Says, "Yes, mother." Oh Ibrahim, do you accept this wife that the sheikh or the scholar or the general has mentioned to be your wife in Jannah? Do you want this lady to be your wife? He said, "I am pleased for her to be my wife." Says Mumtaz. So she goes, she buys for him the best horse, weapons, and gives it to him. Then the Muslim army is setting out. And the Qurra, the people of recitation, like our Sheikh with a very beautiful recitation, they recite the verses, "Inna Allah ashtara min al-mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna lahum al-jannah." They recite these verses related to ash-shahada fi sabilillah. So Ibrahim comes to Ibrahim and says, "Oh my son, I hope that you shall intercede for me on the day of judgment. As for now, I'm hugging you goodbye, I'm kissing you goodbye. I do not want to see you again in my life. May Allah gather me and you on the day of judgment. I do not want to see you again in this life. May Allah gather me and you on the day of judgment. Go and do not shame us and our family. Do not show any cowardice in the battle. Fight the enemies of Islam. Lift the banner of La ilaha illallah very high and show the braveness and show your truthfulness to Allah Azza wa Jalla." So Ibrahim leaves and he goes to fight the enemies of Islam in a faraway land. He fights many, defeats many, until the enemies gather around him and they kill him. The general Abdul Wahid ibn Zayd al-Ansari says to the Muslims, do not tell Ibrahim that the son is dead. Perhaps she might get emotional and lose all her reward. Let me tell her the story. Let me tell her the news. So she comes up to Basra. Everyone is waiting at the gates of Basra to see if their family has come back. These young men or the old men who have gone to defend Islam, if they have come back. Ibrahim is amongst the people at the gate. So she sees the general Abdul Wahid and says, Ya Aba Ubaid, O Aba Ubaid, هل قبلت هديتي? Was my present accepted? فأفرح فأهنى. I congratulate myself and I'm happy. Or ردت إلي فأعز نفسي. Or it has been rejected and thrown back at me so that I can cry and bereave myself. Has my present been accepted by Allah Azza wa Jal? Abdul Wahid, he smiles and says to her, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted your present. He's accepted your sacrifice. Your son is amongst the martyrs who passed away in this battle. And she made sujood shukr. Look at the iman of those ladies, those worshippers of that time. Who's ready to leave their own son? You've heard the stories of Afra, Khamsa, all those greats of Islamic history. Look at this lady. Also reminds us of Khamsa, of the time Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She makes sujood shukr. At night, she sleeps. In the morning, she comes. Ya Aba Ubaid, Basharak Allahu bil khayr. Oh Aba Ubaid, may Allah give you good news. Says, Wallahi, you always bring good news. Oh sister, what do you have? She says, I saw my son Ibrahim at night. And he said to me, Ya Ummah, oh my mother, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted your mahar. And I have been married to that particular lady. I have been married in Jannah, and I'm in this garden with this qubba, with this dome in Jannah. Such are the status or the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given or prepared for the one who is ready to sacrifice his wealth, to sacrifice his soul for his sake. This is a soul that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us, by He has given us a trade. Be ready to give it in the correct manner, to return it back to Him in the proper manner that He beloves it. The one that He loves the most is to sacrifice yourself fi sabilillah, for the sake of la ilaha illallah. This is the state of the shaheed. This is the state of the murabit fi sabilillah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.